National Security Act has long been a controversial issue. The government says the ISA, which allows for detention without trial or charge, is needed to protect national security. But critics say it's being used to suppress political opposition. These people here are protesting against a law they say is unjust. I'm Fauzia Ibrahim. In this edition of 101 East, we ask, who is the ISA protecting?
We need such an act like Internal Security Acts to prevent minority groups who are trying to create an harmonious situation.
ISA is not about race. ISA is about national security.
And we were not terrorists. We were basically fighting for the rights of the most marginalized community in Malaysia.
I'm talking about basic human rights, rights for fair trial, right to defend oneself.
Preventative detention was first introduced to Malaysia by Britain as it fought a communist insurgency in the 40s and 50s. But with independence came a renewed commitment to detention without charge or trial. Malaysian lawmakers passed the ISA in 1960, and critics say subsequent amendments have only made the law more draconian. The most recent ISA detainee, Mas Slamat, is a suspected leader of Jemaah Islamiyah, the regional militant group blamed for the 2002 Bali bombings. His arrest in the Malaysian border town of Johor came after he'd escaped custody in Singapore.
He was planning something which allows us to arrest him.
I mean, was he planning to create unrest like
I can't go into the details, this is too sensitive.
But former ISA detainee Manoharan refuses to be categorized in the same manner as a religious extremist.
I'm not a terrorist. So they use this particular word, they branded us as terrorists to justify our arrest.
Manoharan and 4 other ethnic Indian community leaders were arrested after a rally protesting alleged discrimination against Indians in Malaysia.
We were basically fighting for the basic needs of the Indian community. The basic, that is the citizenship rights, basic education. We were fighting for against the temple demolishment.
Manoharan was taken to the Kamunteng Detention Centre, where other ISA detainees are held. For several months, he was denied legal counsel or contact with the outside world. During his 17 months detention, Manoharan contested and won local elections. He is convinced his victory while under the ISA was a stinging message from the electorate to the ruling coalition government.
I feel that they have voted against ISA. They have voted. They have not seen me in person. They wanted ISA to be abolished. They don't want the manner in which the UMNO-led government is running the country.
The United Malays National Organisation, better known as UMNO, has been Malaysia's ruling political party since independence in 1957. The party has been a forceful defender of Malay rights, but critics say it often plays the race card for political purposes. The leader of a new pro-ISA movement says the act is needed to send a message to the minority Chinese and Indian communities that Malay supremacy cannot be compromised.
We need such an act like Internal Security Acts to prevent these minority groups who are trying to distract, who are trying to create an harmonious situation among the 27 million of the Malaysian citizens.
So the ISA is enacted to protect the Malay groups?
Yeah, as the native, as the people who are majority. So
And to keep the Malays in power?
yes, because the reality in this country has shown that the Malays are the majority, and only Malays. The stability of the Malays can also assure, can also guarantees the stability of other races.
Observers say the Malay nationalist view of the ISA is not widely shared. In their opinion, most Malaysians are more concerned about the perceived abuse of the law for political gain.
ISA is not about race. ISA is about national security. When Muslims were arrested and detained under the Act for alleged extremist tendencies, nobody really complained. With the opposition parties gaining strength in the parliament, the ISA is always in focus, because ISA is something that the authorities can use against such movement.
It is this issue of political oppression that has many activists calling for the amendment or abolishment of an act they say is archaic and open to abuse.
I'm talking about basic human rights, rights for fair trial, right to defend oneself, and right to be innocent, right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. So this is a very essential aspect of the problem with the law. Firstly, detention without trial, and secondly, the powers, arbitrary powers that you have with the police as well as the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Some say the ISA cost the ruling UMNO party valuable votes in the last general election. New Prime Minister Najib Razak has vowed to review the act, but many Malaysians do not believe the government will fulfill its promise to protect civil liberties.
The government has this feeling that they can't actually abolish ISA. They still need it until such time when they feel comfortable that they have the power, they have the confidence of the people.
To ensure their frustrations were heard, anti-ISA groups gathered on August 1st to mark the 49th anniversary of the Act. Their plan was to march to the palace to hand over a memorandum to the King, calling for the ISA to be abolished. But without a proper permit, authorities deemed the gathering as illegal and stopped the march. Some 600 people were arrested.
The people are still not happy with the changes that the government is making. We cannot tolerate such unjust law. If there's still no big changes, there's still no changes, they will feel the effect in the next general election.
And joining me to discuss the protests over the Internal Security Act, Malaysian Government MP Khairi Jamaluddin, the National University of Malaysia's Dr. Denison Jayasuriya, and former Law Minister and now leader of the People's Justice Party, Zaid Ibrahim. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us on this issue. Khairi Jamaluddin, if I can start with you. Now, the ISA is said to be used as a tool to protect national security. In your opinion, just what constitutes a threat to national security?
Well, principally, the Internal Security Act is legislation that is used to ensure that any threat to national security is contained before the act takes place. Principally, it has to do with activities that undermine national security, like terrorism, like activities that undermine or that incite religious and racial hatred amongst the people of Malaysia. So these are very subjective issues which come up from time to time. And it's up to the police and the Home Minister to judge whether or not these statements or activities are tantamount to undermining national security. And I'd like to add that there's a fine line between national security and stifling legitimate political dissent. And I think that's why the Prime Minister said we're going to review this act, the ISA, so that there's no abuse, there's no stifling of legitimate political dissent via the ISA in the future.
Given what you've just said then, would you admit that the ISA has been used to stifle opposition voices in the past?
I think in the past there have been some instances where the ISA has been used which has been perceived to be stifling of legitimate political dissent. And that's what we're trying to clarify here via the process of reviewing this legislation. And that's why I think the whole point of demonstrating against the ISA, while I understand where that comes from, it's actually premature because this process of reviewing the legislation is taking place.
We'll get back to on the issue of reviewing the ISA, but Denizen Jayasuriya, I just want to throw this question at you. Given the context of Malaysia, given the social fabric of Malaysia, is it at all possible to draw that fine line between a threat to national security and political opposition?
I think the real concern has been over the years how this act has been tightened to give almost unquestionable power to the executive. Article 8, in which the minister has the power to detain an individual up to 2 years. Article 8 also restricts judicial review. This was not there in the original case.
Zahid Ibrahim, you resigned as law minister over this act. Now that is quite a major stand to take. What is your position?
Well, to me, ISA and other preventive laws, there are other preventive laws in this country. ISA is not just one of them. It's just one of them. Okay. Now, to me, if the government is not prepared to repeal, then we will not have democracy in this country. The future of the politics in this country is this. Do you want the people, the basic rights that the people all over the world have, the rights that are guaranteed under the Constitution, the right of speech, the right of assembly, without sacrificing security, without sacrificing the security of the country, of course. We accept that. We accept preventive laws, but it must be specific and it must be limited in time and it must be subject to judicial review.
On that note, we will have to take a very short break and we will continue discussing Malaysia's Internal Security Act in just a couple of minutes. Stay with 101 East.